What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aiden, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a Chicago Bulls related video, more specifically talking about the defensive end for the Chicago Bulls, the struggle it's been over the course of probably the entire month of March, but even then, there's still a lot of defensive issues that the Chicago Bulls have to work on. We only really play defense once every 5 games, and we're going to be talking about why these defensive capabilities are not being shown, why the Chicago Bulls are struggling, and I guess all of these situations. It does feel like it's the perfect time again after 2 consecutive 126-point performances conceded by the Bulls. Let's talk about their defense. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and whether or not their defensive liabilities can be fixed throughout the course of the remainder of the season. Or do you see our defensive weaknesses continue to shine through into the NBA playoffs? And if that does happen, we are in very much massive amounts of danger. Well, first things first, ladies and gentlemen, again, I can put the list, the amount of points we've conceded as a team in recent games. So, as I said before, playing defense once every 5 games or something like that, we conceded 126 points to the New Orleans Pelicans. We conceded 126 points to the Milwaukee Bucks. We conceded 129 points to the Phoenix Suns. We conceded 125 points to the Utah Jazz. We conceded 112 points to the Sacramento Kings in a loss. The recent stretch of defensive weaknesses for the Chicago Bulls, especially against good teams, but even then you can see against the Pelicans, who are granted a better team than what they are, their record is, but still not the best team out there. They are going to struggle. They struggle against the best teams. They struggle on the defensive end. Now, you've heard Zach LaVine say recently that if you're a playoff team, you can't give up 122 points. Well, we're doing it on a consistent basis. So I guess the question is, why are the Chicago Bulls letting this happen on a regular basis? There's a variety of reasons as to why this is happening. And again, these are just some of the things that I pick up on as a Bulls fan. So let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with what I have to say upon every single circumstance that I'm going to mention in this video. The first thing I have to say, and something that stands out to me, is obviously the drop coverage defense on pick and rolls. Now, unfortunately, this is not just the Chicago Bulls issue. Most centers that are not very big and not very mobile, not being able to move as quickly on the court as other centers, will have to result in drop coverage defense. It just is what it is. We saw with the Pelicans as well. They do drop coverage defense. You saw it with Jokic as well, Joel Embiid. Big centers that are probably not able to guard the perimeter as much as maybe some of the smaller centers out there. They result into drop coverage. Drop coverage is probably the most used defensive, defensive scheme for pick and rolls out there. Unfortunately for the Chicago Bulls, we don't seem to have a very strong pick and roll defense, and I think a lot of that comes down to drop coverage and not even being able to execute the drop coverage well enough, because there have been times, again, if you're looking at specific games, I can give you games like the Boston Celtics, where we left tons and tons and tons of lobs to guys like Robert Williams, the Atlanta Hawks with Clint Capella, and I guess the list can go even further on from that. But again, those are the ones that come to mind more specifically, where drop coverage is what we're playing, but it's still not working in terms of executing that drop coverage, because you see those lobs thrown up to Capella and Robert Williams, and you see that the roll man is getting a lot of buckets. But also, when we step up in terms of the drop coverage, let's say the center steps up and tries to clear as much space as possible in front of the guard with the center rolling in behind him. Even then, the guards seem to find ways to score. So the drop coverage is not working very well for the Chicago Bulls, but more specifically, I think we use it way too much and it becomes extremely predictable. How many times do you see traps with the Chicago Bulls? I feel like we see a trap of a defender or an offensive player maybe once every game. Even probably less than that. I don't recall seeing a trap against the Bucks. I don't recall seeing a trap against the Pelicans. I think the last game I remember seeing the Chicago Bulls trap someone was Fred VanVleet against the Raptors in the game that we won. How many times have you seen a blitz on a pick and roll? How many times have you maybe even seen a switch if it does come down to that? Now, of course, Vucevic is a liability in terms of guarding the perimeter, so you're not going to see switches as much. But defensive schemes are just simply not being put into place to be able to help a guy like Vucevic, who is a weakness on the defensive end, we all know. But at the end of the day, he as well is also going to create problems, even if we do the correct schemes on the defensive end and the pick and rolls. So, unfortunately, I don't know how this is going to change. You could potentially say Vucevic needs to be traded, but Vucevic brings a lot on the offensive end. And I know many people will blindly say that Vucevic is going to, I guess, be the guy that costs us many games. And maybe defensively, his liabilities do show that. But also, you have to consider offensively, especially recently, he's been our best player. Out of everybody that's been struggling, Zach LaVine, of course, he dropped 40 against the Pelicans, but he's been struggling recently with his shot. Vucevic is the only one that's really not been struggling with shooting the ball as of late. So it is a frustrating moment in time for the Chicago Bulls, but defensively, the pick-and-roll coverages, the guards as well. It's not just Vucevic and the defenders on the center position. It's the guards as well, not being able to stand in front of their man. When they go over the screen, they're not in front of their man. They can't go under screens because they just shoot over the top of them. The Bulls have a very hard time in guarding the pick-and-roll, and I think that's our biggest weakness because most teams will use the pick-and-roll against the Chicago Bulls. So when we find a way to solve those issues, I think our defense becomes 10 times as better as it is now. I think the Chicago Bulls do a terrible job running off the three-point shooters as well. I feel like a bunch of teams that we verse, even teams that are not necessarily known as good three-point shooting teams, like the New Orleans Pelicans, ends up shooting massive amounts of three-point shots on us and makes those three-point shots on us. Now, at the end of the day, that could be me just being a little bit biased. Again, I watch a lot of Bulls games compared to every other team. I'm sure every other team will go through this as well. But the Chicago Bulls do have a tough time guarding the three-point line. We don't run players off of the three-point line. You see guys give up on certain shooters in the corners and allow them to get those threes. And even in transition, we are not defending the three very well. So, of course, with the Chicago Bulls, if you're not going to run down the three-point line, how many teams do you see shoot massive amounts of threes? We are one of the worst teams in terms of shooting threes, but apparently we're one of the highest percentages in scoring threes. And that was at the beginning of the season. I don't really know what it is now, but at the end of the day, you got to run plays off the three-point line. These teams that we play are three-point based teams. Most of them, their priority is to shoot threes. That's how most teams will play. That's how most teams end up competing for championships, because they're shooting up a bunch of threes. And I guess whichever team has the highest efficiency in scoring threes will most likely win that championship. It's as simple as that. Defensive schemes can only go so far, but if you don't run plays off the three-point line, if you don't force them into shots they don't want to take, then the reality is you're going to get blown out more often than not. I saw a bunch of shots with the Pelicans that were simply so easy to make. Same with the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee was much worse in my opinion, and same with the Phoenix Suns. Those two games were much worse in terms of allowing people to shoot open threes and just to take uncontested jump shots. There are certain players, very few select players you can let shoot open threes, let shoot open jump shots, but they're very few and far between, which means the Bulls are doing a bad job in running people off of that three-point line, from the corners, from transition, everywhere in between. Fouling, ladies and gentlemen. Probably our biggest issue, in my opinion, is how much we foul as a team. We constantly reach into defenders, trying to steal the ball. We're so set in our ways defensively in trying to get steals and deflections that we are not succeeding on the defensive end, which results in us fouling. When we get beat off the dribble, we result in someone fouling. When someone comes over late for help, they result in fouling. Vucevic is another guy that simply just puts his hand down every time someone drives into him, which results in fouling. So many fouls for the Chicago Bulls. Tristan Thompson, another guy, constantly always on 5 fouls. He got ejected from the last game against the Pelicans. Recently, Caruso, foul trouble. It's always a select few plays. It's not always going to be the same guys, but the result remains the same. The Chicago Bulls continue to foul individuals. And it sucks because we're not getting those foul calls as well. So that's an offensive issue. I don't want to talk about that. We'll talk about that at another time. But defensively, we are giving these teams easy opportunities at the free throw line. Milwaukee had 20 free throws. I don't even know what the Pelicans had free throw wise, but I'm pretty sure it's probably higher than the Bulls in my opinion. At least that's what At least that's my prediction. I don't really know. I didn't check the stats for that game. But most of the time, you're going to see these teams shoot more free throws. Utah, another example. They're going to shoot more free throws than the Chicago Bulls because we constantly allow them to do so. The referees have an easy time when it comes to the games against the Chicago Bulls because they have the reputation of us known as a fouling team. It makes it 10 times harder. When you're a fouling team and now you have the reputation of a fouling team, even if you don't foul, the referees are going to call those fouls on you because of the reputation alone. So at the end of the day, that is a bad example to set for the Chicago Bulls, and that could definitely be one of those things that is seen by the Chicago Bulls for years to come that will affect us for many years. We got to stop fouling as a team, ladies and gentlemen, and if we could do that and just play solid man defense, solid hands-up defense, staying in front of your man without fouling, we are going in a good direction defensively, but we don't see that enough as well. And attitude. Probably the last thing I'm going to talk about. Again, there are so many things. Allowing dribble penetrations into the paint, easy one. But for me, I think all of it comes down to attitude. I saw in this game, and I understand Zach LaVine played good defense in this game against the Pelicans. I personally believe so as well. But we saw in that game a rookie in Ayo Dosunmu screaming at Zach LaVine to play defense in this game. And for whatever reason, we have a rookie telling other people, veteran guys that have been in the league longer than him, guys that know what it takes to win these types of games, to play defense. There's a mismatch there, ladies and gentlemen. There's something there that shouldn't be happening. The veteran guys, those guys that are going to be making heaps of money, that's been there before, that's been in championship situations before, should be screaming at Ayo to be playing defense. It should not be the other way around. So a mentality and attitude issue on the defensive end has occurred for the Chicago Bulls. A mentality issue, I don't know what it is, but there's an issue with the Chicago Bulls mindset on how to play defense and whether or not we are playing defense. We're not giving 110% on the defensive end, because if we were, not only would we be seeing significantly less points scored on our team, but you wouldn't have guys screaming at other guys to play defense. Very, very rarely do you see, I guess, teammates turn on each other. And I know it wasn't that type of situation. Ayo didn't turn on Zach LaVine, but Ayo was giving him some, encouraging words. It wasn't exactly a friendly type of situation, but you have to let these guys know. Doesn't matter who you are, you're liable. When you come into this team and you play for this team, if you're not giving 110% on the defensive end, they have to be called out. And I think at the end of the day, it's inexcusable for an attitude problem on the defensive end for the Chicago Bulls to occur. How many great teams have we seen on the defensive end for the Chicago Bulls? Even our weakest teams, even teams under Jim Boylen, was leading the league in rebounding. It was just a basic thing for the Chicago Bulls. We were always seen as a good rebounding team, and now for whatever reason, we're one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. Too many players don't want to take charges on this team either. Only Alex Caruso, I saw DeMar DeRozan in the last game get a charge call, but very few players want to commit to that and want to take charges on this team. So problems galore for the Chicago Bulls, but most of it, in my opinion, comes down to attitude. I feel like if you put a little bit extra on every single possession on the defensive end, you will see those growth. You will see the growth of this team defensively. You will see the success of this team defensively. But if you don't put in enough effort, if you're not putting a shift in, and if you're having miscommunications, or you're just communicating poorly with each other, and you're having arguments about each other on who's playing defense and who's not playing defense, why aren't you playing defense, why are you guarding this man? It's basic stuff that we just fall into, and it reflects in the ways that they're scoring on us. So Zach LaVine said we need to stop making these teams beat us up. At the end of the day, words is words. Actions speak louder than words. I want to see the Chicago Bulls team prove to the fans that they don't want to get beaten up anymore. I feel like every single game that we walk into, every team's going to be beating us up. And we're just letting it happen. If you don't want teams to beat you up, the only way to resolve that issue is to not let teams beat you up. It's easy said, but it's easier said than done. You got to show it to the Chicago Bulls fans. The next game against Cleveland is important towards our season. Defensively, we need to be there. team against the New York Knicks. They might not be the best offensive team out there, but they're still going to be a good defensive team. And if you catch the Chicago Bulls on an off night defensively, you're going to make a team like the New York Knicks look good offensively. That can't happen. Same with Washington. The list goes on. There is points to prove for the Chicago Bulls, and we haven't proven it. We went a very bad 2-2 so far this week, and we should have beat the Pelicans, in my opinion. Without Brandon Ingram, that's an inexcusable game to lose. So the next game against Cleveland, defensive habits needs to start being a thing. And many people have already given up on the Chicago Bulls. Many people don't want to believe that we can change and we're just set in our own ways. And if we are, that's a very unfortunate circumstance, because this is supposed to be the time when we play our best basketball, not our worst. So we need to make changes very quickly. We want to come into the playoffs with momentum on our side. This is not a good way of showing that we're going to be good in the playoffs. It's time for those changes to happen, and hopefully Billy Donovan can see it. Again, I think he's definitely at fault for some of this as well. A game like this against the Pelicans, where you have Jackson Hayes and Valanciunas in the team, we said that we wanted to experiment with big men. Billy Donovan said that this could be a long-term future for the Chicago Bulls to play Tristan and Vucevic at the same time. Yet in this game, with 2 7-footers on the floor, you still went small. Terrible mistake in my opinion. Should never ever happen, especially with an athletic guy like Jackson Hayes that can easily play the power forward with just how athletic he is. He had a great game in my opinion. Inexcusable for the Chicago Bulls to do that. So we'll have to wait and see how we go in the next game. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. Another tangent I've went on, ladies and gentlemen, but these videos have to be made. And again, when was the last time I talked about the defense? And also, how important is it to talk about the defense? Because I think it's pretty important considering just how badly we're allowing teams to beat us up at this point. Have a wonderful and safe day. I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video. Hopefully the next game against Cleveland will be a good one. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care.